Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is episode 2 of the series that I'm currently trying to do, which is about me, my life, and my ideologies, whatever I believed in, whatever my thoughts are about things, general things that surround us that we cannot ignore in our lives. And in this episode number 2, I'm going to talk about an issue that will probably make this episode the most controversial of all the episodes that I'm going to do in this series. I can probably tell that already. Apart from one more, I think, episode that's probably going to be on religion. Uh, why I'm saying so, or why I'm speculating as such, is a reason is because there's something called as bias, and we all have some biases. And there are some issues in which our biases are more significant, or uh, they dominate us more as compared to other issues. And this issue, okay, let me bring the cat out of the bag. I'm talking about gender. Gender, when we talk about gender, it's one of those issues, very few issues, on which our thinking capacity, or clear thinking capacity, is significantly affected, because we become victims of bias, and we tend to favor some things over others, or we tend to favor one opinion over the other just because we belong to a particular sex, gender. um, I am not saying that I do not have this bias. I definitely cannot ignore that point, that everyone has biases, and including me, I have some biases, might be having some biases. I cannot eliminate that possibility. Anyways, so let's move on to gender. Well, it's quite complicated. There's a clutter of thoughts in my mind, and it's very hard to decide where to start from. I think starting from the definition of the term seems to be more plausible than anything else. So what do we mean by gender? I mean, there are so many opinions about this also, and some clearly say that there is no definition of it as such, because even the people who believe or who think that gender is a social construct and it has nothing to do with our other things like biology or whatever, even they cannot come up with any concrete definition or specific definition of gender. What is male? What is female? Uh, so, but I'll tell you where I stand on the issue. I currently, and I'm open to, changing my mind. I always have been in all things, in all issues. I am very open to, change my mind. In the last 10 years, I've changed my mind over almost all subjects, sometimes very drastically, like it's a 180-degree turn from what I used to believe and what I now believe in. So I'll tell you what I think gender means to me. I think it has significantly to do with our biological markers, like the chromosomes, the XX and XY, like our genitalia, uh, our bodies, how they are physically. And of course, I cannot eliminate the notion that it has to do with it is a social construction. It is how we construct it in our society, and that's what we become. That's also there. But to pinpoint something, if I had to pinpoint something about gender, it will most definitely be how we look, what is our biological uh, makeup, and yeah, that sort of stuff. So that's how I see gender, and that's how I would like to define it. Because if we completely neglect those things and say that it's just what a person thinks he or she is, then we get into a lot of confusions, and things get really, really complicated from there on onwards. Because what am I to do? What is a person supposed to do when he or she meets another person who looks a particular way but thinks of himself or herself in some other way? Like, there's a male, he has every biological marker indicates that he's a male, but he thinks of himself as a female and is expecting the world to recognize him as a female. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. It's something that the psychology defines or recognizes as the alt-right says. I would like to quote the right-wingers, how they see it. They call it gender dysphoria or gender identity dysphoria, where you are not happy or you're not satisfied with the way you were born, with the biological markers, and you feel differently. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that, but it's a rarity. It is not found in abundance in the society. 97, 98, 99% of people around us identify with the sex that they were born with. That's what their gender is. Majority, a vast majority of people, barring a very tiny minority, believe or identify with their biological markers, the sex that they were born with. Um, so that's that. Now coming on to the question of feminism and women empowerment and man versus woman, or how things have been, and where I stand. Well, I would like to clearly state that I do definitely feel and understand and accept that there have been vast number of, we can say, atrocities and oppressions that have been carried on women and still are carried on uh, in today's world. And there is a desperate need to change that status quo, and we need to empower women as much as we can and give them what they deserve. It's not a favor that anyone has to do for women. It's what they deserve and are not getting, have not been getting from a long time. Well, I do disagree on the point that they have not been getting this from a long time, and people might disagree with me, but let me take the opportunity to clear my standpoint on this. Why I say that it has not been happening from a long time, but quite recently. Uh, well, when we talk of human society, the prehistoric or even the one that after that that we are living in today, we see that when the whole thing started, the beings, the human race, they were a community or a species of hunter-gatherers. That's how things used to be, like not so long ago. I mean, we used to hunt, and we used to go outside and do manual labor or physical labor, and then we used to get our food, and we used to hunt down animals and get our food and then eat it. Okay, so that's a physical thing, something that requires physical strength, and I don't think anyone is going to oppose the fact that men are physically stronger or more, yeah, stronger than women. And if one had to logically choose between the two genders, between the two sexes, over the question that who it should be that should go outside and hunt the animals and who should stay indoors and take care of the children or cook the food or do other stuff, if one was to choose logically, then rationally, then definitely the answer was the male should go out, the female should stay in. If one had to choose, that's what I'm saying. But if both want to go out, that's fine as well. But that doesn't, that doesn't seem to be the more efficient way to do things, because if one of them goes out and the other does rest of the work, then the other person is making things easier. Or it all boils down to that theory of doing specific work. What is that called? In business management, they talk about that division of labor. Yes, specific duties are done by specific people, and the labor is divided, the work is divided among people. So thinking on those lines, if we think about the past and how our society had been working, we come to understand that majority of the work that was to be done outside, like hunting for the animals or even farming outside on the fields, to cultivate fruits and grains in the later centuries, or all that stuff that was to be done by one of the two sexes, and that would the logical or the rational choice or option would have been for the male to do it, and that's what the society did. That's what the human race did. Men went out, and women, because they were the ones who gave birth to children, and children had to breastfeed and all that. So it made more sense for women to stay inside and men to go outside. But as things changed afterwards, with the advent or inception of the industrial revolution, we can say, when things became easier and there was no need for physical labor outside as much as it was before, things started to change. Now the work was not dependent, or the work was not physical in its essence. The work had become more mental. Now you have to use your mind to do the work more than your limbs, your hands and your feet. So now there was an opportunity for this other sex, that is female, for them to work as much as the males could. And that's from where that's what my theory says. That's what I feel, from where things started to become complicated. Because before it was clear who has to do what, and now with industrialization and our machines making our work easier, now there was no need for that physical strength of man. So uh, women and men now had equal opportunities to go out to earn stuff. And but another point that I would like to touch here is that before this industrialization and everything, men used to get the food, men used to toil in the fields, of course with significant help from the female counterparts as well, but it was predominantly males who used to do it. At that time, whatever the, we can say, the money that was brought in, because money was not a thing to be found in those societies. It's a later construction, it's a later concept. What they had at that time was the fruits of their toil, like literally the fruits of their toil. The fruits, the food grain, the animal, the hunt, the animals that they brought home, all of that was brought by men. And just because of that, there was the sense that whatever is to be spent and however is it is to be spent was decided mutually. But I would like to say it was decided by males, because of the simple reason that men thought that we are doing the work of bringing in the materials, we can say, the bringing in the money in today's world, we can say. So it was decided by males, right? So there was this subjugation of women that happened at that time also. One cannot deny that, because she was dependent on the male for her survival, because she has been trained, or she has been mm, she has conformed to this way of living where the man is earning the bread and butter, and the woman is doing other stuff at home, like the domestic chores. um, so there was some subjugation at that time also, which continues to prevail till now even. Men somehow find it hard to give up on this notion that their women can be independent financially, like they are not dependent on them anymore. This is becoming hard for the men to accept or digest, we can say, because this was not how the society used to work before. And this is something that needs to change, and this is going to change with education and awareness drives and all that stuff that I'm going to talk about later, inshallah, in this episode. But for now, the point that I wanted to make was that things changed quite recently. We can say some 2 or 3 centuries ago. It was the time of it was when the Industrial Revolution kicked in all over the world, that things started to change, and gender roles kind of started to go through a paradigm shift, we can say. That's why the problems arose, because now both of them had that capacity to um, work equally and get paid equally, and be independent of each other. And there was no I mean, there still is that subjugation of women, which we have carried on from that past that we have lived. Nobody can deny that. And these are the things where we need to bring changes. We need to understand, both men and women need to understand, the world needs to understand, but now it's not about men going outside and working and women taking care of the household chores, cooking, laundry, children, and stuff. But it is to be divided equally. If both have to flourish in this world, both have to do things equally, because we don't have specific gender roles now. We are not bound by anything. Physical strength, which the advantage that men had, has nothing to do with the things that are there in the world today. The work that we have to do in the world today, it's mainly based on your brains and not your limbs. So that's the point. uh, am I a feminist? It's a very interesting question. And as I say, in most of the issues, most of the cases, most of my ideology is based on this thing that I don't like to associate with anything. I'll not associate with any religion. I'll not associate with any sect. I'll not associate with any organization or anything. Why? Because if I associate with someone, this is what I believe, then I have to defend everything that they do. So, like, for example, I'll not say like I'm a Deobandi Muslim or a Bareli Muslim, because if I do, then I have to defend them, the sect that I choose, on everything. Whatever they say, then I have to defend them on that. But I might have reservations. So, can I say that I'm a feminist with some reservations? Yes, definitely. I am a feminist, but I have my reservations with the movement, with the movement, we can say, and what they believe in, and what the methods that they are choosing of, bringing reforms in the society. Am I for reforms? Absolutely, 110%. I am for reforms. I am for women empowerment. I am for all of those things, good things. But still, I have reservations with this feminist movement, especially this third wave. And what do I think about the feminists of the past? Well, if I was living in the 30s or 40s or 50s, yes, I would have been a feminist, a proud feminist. But things have slightly changed, slightly a bit. I feel there's a change, and I'll talk about that in this episode as well as the ones coming next. But yeah, I can call myself a feminist with some reservations. I would like to call myself more of an egalitarian, a person who believes in equality, a person who believes in merit, and a person who believes that there should be equality of opportunity, that everyone should get that opportunity to do whatever he or she wants to do in this world. That's what I believe in. And the ways or methods to bring that equality, that's where I differ with the feminists mostly. Okay, so choosing the middle path has always been, a driving ideology for me, a driving, principle for me. This is one of my core principles is I will never side with anyone. I'll not call myself a leftist or a right winger, a liberal or conservative or whatever the demarcations, the categorizations are. I will never side with anyone. Almost in most of the cases, at least, I'll not side with anyone. I will try to articulate my differences. I will try to articulate why I don't associate, or I might be leaning towards left or right or liberalism or conservatism, but that's just leaning towards something and not being particularly that. So I hope I'm clear on that one. I think as far as the reforms that I was talking about, as far as the reforms are concerned, I feel like the reforms are to be brought in mainly by education. Education is like, as I said in the past video, sorry, in the past journal entry, in the first episode, education is a strong and impactful way of doing things, of bringing changes in the world, or of bringing reforms in the world. And same applies here. If we are to talk about women empowerment or women's safety or all of that stuff, equality, then education is what I feel the only way. Not the only way, sorry. Yes, there can be other ways of, punishing the criminals and that sort of stuff, but education plays the vital role of bringing the change right at the grassroots level. That's what I mean to say. So we have to train, or we have to educate our boys, as well as girls, but mostly our boys, from a very young age, that this is how things are, and we don't have to stick to the orthodox mentality, particularly the mentality that is dangerous for the world today. For example, the orthodox mentality of women being at home and men going outside to work. This has to break, but who's going to break them? Who's going to break it? It is to be done through education, starting right from our home, because charities, that cliche, charity begins at home. It's a quite important one, although it's a cliche, but it's a quite important one. So we have to start from our homes, and we have to teach our children, both boys and girls, how things are and what gender roles are, what gender is, and what equality is, and why equality is necessary. Then we have to move to schools, we have to move to colleges and universities, we have to carry debates and discussions, we have to open platforms for discussions. We just cannot, be silent, or we just cannot neglect this issue. It's a very significant issue and needs to be tackled and needs to be understood by one and all. That's what I feel about it. So say for example, we have to do things like we don't have to tell our female children, our beautiful daughters, uh, our sisters or our mothers, that they have to do particular things, and our brothers, our sons, our fathers don't have to do particular things. That thing should be broken right at the grassroots level, right at our homes, then at our schools, colleges and universities. We have to teach our young ones, the next generation, that there is there is absolutely no difference between one gender and the other when it comes to things that we consider as gender roles, work that is to be done by a particular gender. This thing has to be broken. Uh, um, I mentioned something about the equality of opportunity earlier on. I would like to get back on that a bit. There are two things. There are two concepts: equality of opportunity, which I strongly and staunchly believe in, and then there is something called as equality of outcome. I'll try to make things clearer with an example. In 2015, there was this case that was lodged by the American women's soccer team, soccer as they call it there, football, the game of football. They call it soccer. The American women's soccer team is one of the best currently in the world. They have 4 World Cup titles out of the 9 that have been played so far. From 1991, it started. Out of the 9, they have won 4. Currently, they are the champions as well, and they are great. They are superb. So they went to the court of law, and they pleaded. They claimed that they should be paid equally as much as the males the male soccer team or the men's soccer team of America as much as they are getting paid. So they had this case against the Football Federation of America. So what happened there? I think it's still going on. I don't know about that, but what it did was that it brought this discussion to the forefront. It brought this people started to discuss this issue that what should be the basis for a person getting paid, and what I personally think about the issue is. Like it's really complex because Ronda Rousey is one other example who says in a 2015 interview with an Australian reporter who questioned her. Ronda Rousey, by the way, is an MMA fighter, mixed martial arts UFC fighter, Ultimate Fighting Championship. I hope you know it. She plays. She fights in there, and she was champion for many years, many months, and is still doing good. She did say in an interview, and I quote, "I think how much money you get paid should have something to do with how much money you bring in." End quote. This is what she had to say to the Australian reporter who had questioned her about the Australian team. The Australian football team also had a similar claim as the American soccer team had. So the Australian reporter questioned Ronda Rousey on this pay gap issue, why there is a pay gap between the males and the females. And what Ronda Rousey said, and I quote again, is I think how much money you get paid should have something to do with how much money you bring in. End quote. This is something that when I read this, I was quite convinced by this argument, I must say, because if we again talk about the American women's football team and what they have done, it's incredible, of course. But what we need also to keep in mind while making a decision or taking a stand or forming an opinion over the issue is how much money is it that the women soccer team of America or anywhere else is bringing in. The NFL, the basketball, the NBA, the male matches, the matches in which men play basketball in America are watched by millions and millions around the world, in America and around the world, while as the same game played by the other gender, females, is not watched by so many people for whatever reasons that might be there. Maybe it has to do with physical strength, of course, but the thing is, the entertainment value or the value of what you are doing is determined by something. Why is it that people are not watching uh, more females playing the same game that they enjoy Michael Jordan or LeBron James playing the same sport? That was something that struck me while I was thinking over this issue, and I found it quite sensible. This argument that Ronda also made, which was that you should get paid as much as you bring in, and uh, that's where I feel like the American women's soccer team, although they did great in the World Cup championships, they have won it 4 times and they are the world champions, and they have beaten all other clubs of all other countries and teams in the World Cup. But the thing still is okay. There was this another match that happened between these American women's team and an under 14 or under 16 football team, male, of South America somewhere. Okay, I searched it up. I googled it. It was FC Dallas. And I think that's yes, of course, an American under 15 side boys team. Under 15 boys team played the U.S. national women's football team, soccer team, and the score was 5 goals to 2. The under 15 boys beat the under 15 boys of a club of some part of the country, a small club of some part of the country. Under 15 boys of that academy, of that club's academy, they beat the national women's team 5 goals to 2. So to cite this example, my only ambition to cite this example was to bring something to the forefront, some point to the forefront. It's not the same thing. I mean, yes, you can say that we are doing what the males are doing. We are doing like we are playing the same game. We are playing for 90 minutes as the males are playing for 90 minutes, so we should be paid the same amount of money. But where that argument breaks is that it's not about the labor that you're bringing in. It's a game, it's a sport. And should Michael Jordan be paid the same amount of money as say a third division basketball player, male? No, of course not. Why? Because Michael Jordan brings in more amount of people to watch the game. Should Messi be paid the same as say some Indian footballer like Sunil Chetri? No. Should Cristiano Ronaldo be paid same as Sunil Chetri? No. So that's my point. It's what you bring in that you get. This is where earlier I said that I consider myself to be a feminist with some reservations. These are the reservations that I have. I am all for equality of opportunity. I think everyone should get the opportunity to do as well as he or she can. But I'm not for equality of outcome, because you cannot control that, especially in this economy, because it's not we don't live in an economy that is, you know, Marxist or socialist in that way. Like uh, it's not equally distributed. We live in capitalism. You get what you bring in, you get what you give. And when we're living in such a society, this is how things ought to be working. Now, you can disagree with me on whether we should be living in a capitalistic society, whether everyone should be getting mm, what they give in, or should everyone be getting everything equally. That's a debate for another day. But what my point is that currently, what the world that we are living in, you this is how things are. I mean, Ambani does not work as hard as say a laborer that is working at your home, laying bricks, or uh, doing some other stuff. He just gets some 500, 600, 700 rupees doing that job, while Ambani is not using his physical, we can say, body as much as that laborer is doing. But Ambani gets so many millions made in a day, earns so many millions in a day. Well, that's how things are. And as I said, it's a debate, it's a discussion for another day, whether that's the right thing or not. But for now, this is what I believe in, and this is what I think is my reservation, or these are my reservations with the people who argue for equality of outcome. I hope I made some sense there. Okay, moving on. Okay, another point on which I think I differ from the feminists is how they try to make, how they consider only one aspect of one's life to be of the utmost importance. Say, for example, money or success or fame is something that they equate with being successful or being happy. I mean, what is being successful? If we come to the root question, it's about happiness, isn't it? It's about the hormones that you get. I can give an example of a person who is not who is not, say, for example, we can again talk about Ambani or some other millionaire like Bill Gates or someone like that, who is uh, if it's all about happiness and how much happy you are, uh, consider a life of a person who has all the money and everything, but he cannot, you know, he cannot sleep peacefully as a laborer can, say, for example, or a government employee who has a tenured job, who has a job that a secure job that is giving him or her some 70,000, 80,000 rupees per month, and that job is secure for life. His life is secured for life, for forever. I mean, for as long as he lives, and even after he lives, his wife or children, they get that pension and stuff. So he's more at peace with things as compared to a businessman. No matter how many millions he is making, he is living under stress. I mean, isn't it about happiness at the end of the day? If a person is just making 30,000 rupees, 40,000 rupees per month, but he has a great relationship with his wife, or a wife is making 40,000 per month and has a great relationship with her husband, or with her children, or with her neighbors and relatives, uh, there is less stress in her life or in his life as compared to a person who is earning millions or is a CEO of a big and but his relations at home with his wife, or a woman's relations with her husband, are not good. So will we call that life a successful life? What is success? This is a primary philosophical discussion that we can have. Isn't it about happiness? Isn't it about isn't it about many other things in life, except for just limiting it to um, money, and owning a big being a big entrepreneur, owning a big business, or stuff like that, or having a position like being the district magistrate or something, or prime minister or chief minister or something. If it's all about happiness, we have these happiness hormones in our brain that are neurotransmitters that are fired or activated at some point. Like dopamine is a reward hormone, as we know, which gets activated or triggered when there is when there is a possibility of a reward, or when we get a reward or something like that. There is serotonin, there is oxytocin, endorphins. Like serotonin regulates the mood. Oxytocin is also known as the love hormone, is something that gets activated when we have a strong bond with someone, or we kiss someone. A man kisses his wife or has sex, they make love, and that's when that uh, neurotransmitter gets activated. Endorphins are there, which help in relieving pain and all sort of stuff. So all these happy hormones, as we call them, these are what make us feel happy and satisfied with our life. And it's not just the money, or it's not just the we can say it's not just the positions of power that give us. Yes, they do, they significantly do. Nobody can deny that they are really, really important and can provide a person with all sorts of comforts and happiness in this world. But is it limited to that only? What if, why I said that I differ with the feminists on this point is because their focus is only on women working and earning for themselves, being independent, or being at positions of power and earning more, and that sort of stuff. What if a woman says that I like being at home and taking care of my kids, taking care of my children, and taking care of my husband, and being dedicating my life to support my husband in whatever way I can, and that gives me happiness. That makes me feel happy, instead of going out working and having a career or stuff like that. What I feel is that every woman should be given that choice, and that choice should be respected. If a woman says that this will not define my success, you cannot tell me what my success is. You cannot tell me that if I'm at home and I'm not a career woman, then I'm unsuccessful, or I'm unhappy, or you look down upon me. That's where I differ with the feminists, because you need to give that respect to everyone. You need to respect the choices of every person, every female, in this particular case. So uh, I think I made many points clearer. This was, as I said in the beginning, a very controversial topic, but it needed to be, it needed to be dealt with at some point, for sure. And I found it feasible to get away with it or get done with it as soon as possible. That's why I took it up in episode number 2. So, yeah, I think that's that on the topic. I know I have missed a lot of things that I keep on thinking from time to time on this topic, on this issue, and I hope to talk to you about them in the future episodes. This one has gone on for so long, I don't know, for 40 minutes, 43 minutes, oh my god. So maybe some other time we can again talk about some of these things. As for now, goodbye, take care.